How does a guy who cooked at the best restaurant on the planet end up screaming about beef sandwiches in a kitchen that just got a C from the health department? Yeah, that's the show. This is The Bear, FX's loud, anxious, grease-soaked, nervous breakdown of a series about food, family, and grief, where the comedy is in the chaos and the gut punches come when nobody's yelling. The setup is simple and brutal. Carmy Berzatto, Carm, is a fine dining genius, award-winning, best new chef at 21, the whole thing. Then his older brother Mikey, who ran the family's beat-up Italian beef joint in Chicago, is gone. Mikey had been fighting addiction for a long time, and losing him cracks the whole family wide open. And in his will, Mikey leaves Carm the restaurant, the same restaurant he never once let Carm work in. So Carm comes home to run a sandwich shop that's drowning in debt, staffed by people who hate change. While carrying grief he has no idea how to put down. Cozy. We open on Carm having a dream where he's trying to calm a giant caged bear. Subtle. Then he wakes up to reality, which is the original beef of Chicagoland. A place held together by duct tape and spite. He ordered 200 pounds of meat and got 25. Because there's no money. He's bartering vintage jackets off his own back just to land a meat hookup. And he's surrounded by a crew that treats him like an invader. There's Tina, the veteran line cook who suddenly forgets how to speak English the second Carm asks her to do anything. There's Ebrahim, who guards the system like scripture. There's Donut Marcus, the sweet bread and pastry guy whose mixer is busted. There's Fack, the duct tape MacGyver who fixes the broken arcade machine and gets paid in sandwiches. And there's Sydney. Sid shows up to stage for the Sue job. And she is immediately, obviously, the actual brains of this operation. She paid her way through culinary school driving for UPS. She knows exactly who Carm is, and she watches him flail and thinks, yeah, I could fix this place. Big swing, Sid. Then there's Cousin, Richie Jerimovich, Mikey's best friend, family by loyalty, loud tracksuit guy who calls himself Carm's cousin, even though they're not actually related. He and Carm go at it on sight. Cousin's been running things his way, which includes an arcade tournament to drag in cash and a whole lot of yelling. Carm throws the meanest line at him. If you ran it so fine, why didn't Mikey leave it to you? Oof, cold. By the end, Sid cooks the staff a family meal so good it shuts everybody up, and Carm and Cousin land the tiniest, most fragile truce over a steam tray fix. Don't get comfortable. We flash back to Carm's old life next, and it's a horror show. His old nightmare boss, the abusive Michelin chef who still lives rent-free in his head, is screaming in his face, making him scrub with a toothbrush, telling him he should be dead. Remember that guy, he's the voice Carm can't outrun. Back in the present, Sid makes her move, handing Carm a full-cost breakdown. The hours are dumb. Labor's bleeding out. They're ignoring a whole to-go business. She wants in, and she wants to get paid. Carm half listens, because a health inspector picks that exact day to find a gas line hole stuffed with napkins, no hot water, and cigarettes sitting on the stovetop. Result, a big fat C. Can't even retest for 30 days. Awesome. So Carm sends Cousin and Sid on a hardware run. And on that drive, Cousin tells her flat out that Mikey took his own life a few months back. Just drops it. Then Uncle Jimmy, the bank, shows up. The family money guy with mob-adjacent vibes, and reveals Mikey owed him $300 grand, $300,000, or he takes the building. So now grief comes with a price tag, and Carm's barely upright himself, waking up cooking frozen food in his sleep, nearly torching his apartment, throwing up before shifts like it's a hobby. He hires Sid anyway. Smart. She's the only thing keeping this place standing. Somewhere in here we sit in on an Al-Anon meeting, a woman talking about loving an addict and the 3 things you can't do. You can't cause it, can't control it, can't cure it. Sit with that. It matters more than you think. Carm, meanwhile, tries to drag this beef shop into the big leagues by installing a full French brigade system. Chain of command, yes, chef, the whole opera. Sid, correctly, calls it a fast track to a toxic mess. They compromise. Then the crew hazes the new girl by hiding her prep onions. Carm lets it slide and snaps at her, and Sid's had it. She calls him out, and to his credit, he listens. He even admits he's been going to Al-Anon because of his brother. There's a quiet beat, too. Carm asking why Mikey never bought the cheaper bulk tomato cans. File that away, trust me. And the day closes on a voicemail from Carm's sister, Natalie. Sugar, because it's Mikey's birthday and she's thinking about him. Then comes the kid's birthday party catering gig, which goes about as well as you'd guess. Carm and Cousin are fighting in a driveway about whether you can put a hot dog in a tiny t-shirt. Tina and Sid are circling each other. Tina hitting her with the "I've been in this kitchen since before you were born" routine. Donut Marcus is falling in love with the idea of making one perfect jelly donut, inspired by a fancy dessert Carm described, going full color swatch research mode. And then cousin accidentally spills a bottle of prescription chill pills into the homemade punch, and a few kids nap through their own party. The show's just like that. The real heart of it is Uncle Jimmy the bank, telling Carm a sad dream about Carm's late father, knocking $2,000 off the tab as a congrats, and quietly making it clear he is never selling. He just wants his money. And by the end, Tina cracks, grabs a knife, and helps Sid fix the potatoes without being asked. Progress. Money keeps closing in. Sid's at home with her dad, buried in the books, dreaming of a dinner menu, and this is where the risotto idea is born. Then the toilet explodes. The walk-in fridge dies, and fixing it runs $5,500 they absolutely do not have. While that's burning, Fack blurts out the secret. Cousin's been running a side hustle out of the back alley, the not exactly legal kind, and it's what kept the lights on through the pandemic. Carm shuts it down hard. They end up doing lunch service out on the sidewalk with no gas and no power, and Sugar shows up furious, nailing him with the truth that he only appears when he needs something. He admits he's hitting meetings 3 times a week now. And there's a gorgeous dark moment where Donut Marcus blows a fuse and starts a small fire, and Carm calms him down by confessing the worst thought he's ever had. He once stood watching a fryer fire and thought, if I just do nothing, this whole place burns, and all my anxiety goes with it. And then he put the fire out. Every time, you put the fire out. That's Carm in one sentence. To cover the fridge, they lean on Cousin's old connection one last time, and Sid finally opens up about the catering business that wrecked her credit. 2 broken perfectionists, straining stock together. The good vibes don't last because Sid's been pushing her cola-braised short rib and risotto, and Carm keeps stalling her with "it's not ready." He even admits he called her old bosses before hiring her, and they all said the same thing, brilliant but impatient and green. Real confidence booster, Carm. Meanwhile, Sugar's about to lose her house because the place hasn't paid taxes in 5 years, and she co-owns this nightmare, and Mikey filed everything under folders literally labeled with curse words. Donut Marcus has started sleeping at the restaurant to perfect his donuts, and Carm tells the obsessed weirdo to at least shower. A stray bullet shatters the front window, and in the middle of all of it, a fed-up Sid hands her extra risotto plate to a random customer just so it doesn't go to waste. That customer? A food critic. Oh, this is bad. Cousin, meanwhile, melts down, neglects the register, and threatens to walk, and Carm hits him with the killer. Where are you gonna go, Richie? And then the review lands, and everything detonates. 5 stars. The standout dish? Sid's risotto. The critic basically writing that the chef clearly knew what she was doing. Cousin instantly latches onto one fancy phrase from that review and turns it into a personal insult for Sid. But here's the bomb. Sid accidentally left the online pre-order option switched on, and a tidal wave hits. 255 beef sandwiches, 78 cake slices, dozens of chickens and salads, all due in 8 minutes. 8. And this is where Carm fully becomes Chef Doom, the screaming, spiraling, vein-popping monster his old boss trained him to be. He goes nuclear, sorting sandwiches with colored tape, roaring for a marker that works, flaying everyone in reach. He guts Donut Marcus, who picked the wrong possible second to announce he's finally cracked his donut recipe. He and Cousin have a vicious, ugly fight where Carm calls him a loser and drags his daughter into it. And in the chaos, while they're screaming over a tray of vegetables, Sid accidentally catches Cousin with a knife, like in the body. His response? He probably deserved it. Ebra patches him up while calmly narrating what turns out to be the plot of Black Hawk Down. And then Sid, completely done, looks at Carm, tells him he's an excellent chef and also a piece of garbage, both true, and quits on the spot. Marcus is gone too. Carm's left tasting Marcus's rejected donut on the floor. It's incredible. Of course it is. Then the whole thing cracks open. Carm films a wholesome little cooking video that collapses into his raw, unfiltered grief about his brother, a panic attack disguised as a TV segment, and it bleeds into Carm finally standing up at a meeting and saying the thing out loud. He talks about Mikey, how they cooked together as kids, how food was their only shared language, how Mikey could walk into any room and read it instantly, how Mikey always told him to face it, just get it over with. Let it rip. How Mikey cut him off cold from the restaurant years ago, which lit a fire in Carm to go be the best chef alive, partly just to make his brother say good job, a word that never came. Carm realizes that fixing this restaurant was him trying to fix his brother, maybe the whole family. He just doesn't know if the place ever meant anything to Mikey at all. While Carm's processing all that, Cousin gets himself arrested after a brawl at a bachelor party, puts a guy in the hospital, looking at serious charges until the man wakes up. Carm bails him out with their last 2 weeks of survival cash, and Cousin tells him, "You're all I got, cuz." Tina, warming up fast and dressing like a pro now, hands Carm a clue. Mikey was making big monthly payments to some company nobody recognizes, and his whole grim attitude about the bills was completely out of character. And then it lands. Carm and the crew starts cracking open the cans of tomato Mikey never used, and they're stuffed with cash. Mikey hid the money, for Carm, enough to clear a path forward, tucked in the one place a guy who never cooked with tomatoes would ever hide it. So Carm makes the call, close the beef, build something real, booths, a tasting menu at the bar, a window for sandwiches, all of it. And when somebody asks what they're gonna call this new place, the answer's already sitting right there, the Bear, what Mikey always called his little brother. So the shop's done, the money's real, and Carm's got a name and a reason, which somehow makes everything harder, not easier, because now he has to build a fine dining restaurant from a pile of cash and good intentions. And the second he tells Uncle Jimmy the bank he needs more money, that clock starts ticking all over again. So Carm walks into Uncle Jimmy the bank and asks for $500,000, on top of the $300,000 the family already owes him. And Jimmy, against every ounce of his better judgment, says yes. The catch? Pay it all back in 18 months or he takes the building and the lot and sells it off. The clock is set. Now they actually have to build this place. And building a restaurant from a gutted sandwich shop is its own special nightmare. The budget math spirals the second they start. Fryer shot, oven scary, the HVAC's a fortune, and there's a small army of city permit reps who all have to sign off on each other before anybody can do anything. It's a money pit with a deadline. So everybody levels up. Carm steps back to executive chef, which makes Sid the new head of the kitchen. The actual brains finally getting the title, which means they need a new Sid. So Sid asks Tina, the line cook who spent all of the last year pretending not to speak English, to train as her second. And Tina, who's built like nobody's business, says yes. Carm's sister Sugar gets roped in to project manage the whole circus, and she immediately finds a fresh problem. The IRS won't grant a new business license until every old debt is squared away. Of course it won't. Then Sid literally falls through a wall and finds a hidden crawl space Mikey had alarmed like he was guarding gold. Turns out he sort of was. The franchise dream was real. Mikey genuinely wanted to build something bigger with Carm, and the cash in those tomato cans was him quietly trying to get there. It just makes the whole thing ache a little more. Carm sets the goal out loud anyway. They're going to earn a Michelin star. He's quick to clarify he never technically got one at his old spot. He retained one, which becomes a running bit nobody lets him forget. Meanwhile, the renovations turn into a slow-motion demolition derby. Fack, the duct tape MacGyver, and Cousin spend half their time arguing about whether to move the lockers or tarp over them, while Cousin tries to appoint himself Site Alpha and nobody buys it. They crack open Mikey's old locker and it's just a hat, a photo from a long ago summer, a hockey stick stuck behind it, little ghosts. Carm sends the whole crew to culinary school on the clock to sharpen up, and he and Sid start building the menu together. Beef and smoke and cherry. A chaos menu, but a thoughtful one. Sid asks him what it felt like getting that big call. Carm says the first 10 seconds were pure panic, because his brain skips right past joy and goes straight to dread. Buddy, same. There's warmth too, though. Sugar's quietly, secretly pregnant and terrified, scared this family can't do loving and happy. Sid has dinner with her dad, who raised her alone after losing her mom and keeps gently dangling a safe office job at Boeing, because he's scared the restaurant thing won't pay off. And then Carm bumps into Claire, childhood crush, now almost a doctor. She remembers the name of his dream restaurant because she says he's the Bear, and she remembers him, Smooth. The trouble is, Carm's the kind of guy who gives the woman he likes a fake phone number out of pure panic, which he does. Claire's not stupid. She calls him out, gets his real number from Fack, and ropes him into spending a whole day helping move her mom's stuff into storage. They're falling for each other fast, and it's genuinely sweet. The problem is what it's pulling Carm away from, because while he's off carrying boxes and ignoring his phone, Sid is out touring the best spot in town for inspiration, eating incredible food, and slowly realizing something cold. Every chef she talks to asks about her stake, her profit share, her partnership, and she doesn't have one. She's just working together with Carm. She tries to call him and goes straight to voicemail. He's with Claire. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. Back at the build, it gets worse before better. They tear into the wall and find wood rot, termites, roaches, and multiple dead raccoons. Plural, raccoons. This is no longer a facelift, it's a full gut. And Cousin, fully in his I've been here since the beginning era, keeps knocking down walls and making giant calls without telling Carm a thing. The exact move he used to scream at Carm for. Funny how that works. Then there's a bright spot, and his name is Marcus. They send the sweet, donut-obsessed pastry guy to Copenhagen to stage at a world-class place, mentored by a chef I'll call the Copenhagen guy, Luca. And this is where Donut Marcus quietly becomes the pastry artist. Luca teaches him the precise stuff, the quenelles and the gelée and the patience, but the real lesson is bigger. Luca tells him about coming up thinking he was the best, until a chef started the same day who was just better. Worked harder, moved faster, the real deal. So Luca stopped trying to be the best and just glued himself to the guy and got great in his shadow. Calls himself the Scottie Pippen of the situation. And if you're doing the math on which obsessive, brilliant, impossible chef that was, yeah, it was Carm. Luca's whole point is that past a certain level, it stops being about skill and starts being about staying open to the world, to other people, to inspiration. The best food isn't the fanciest, it's the most felt. Marcus soaks it up and comes home a different cook. Also, we learn Marcus first wandered into the beef years ago getting lunch, back when a tight, charismatic, slightly out of his mind owner named Mikey decided he wanted a bakery and gave a McDonald's guy a shot. Everything circles back to Mikey. Meanwhile, the permits and the power keep nearly sinking everyone. Uncle Jimmy the bank shows up sweating, now over $500,000 deep, threatening to pull the plug, forever teasing a story about complete and utter failure that he never actually tells. Fact tries to invent electricity by stealing power from the neighbors and blows their fuse. Sugar and Cousin go nuclear at each other. And right in the middle of that meltdown, Carm proudly brings Claire by to see the restaurant for the first time, so she gets a front row seat to the entire family combusting at once. She also meets Sid, who clocks exactly what's happening here. The boss disappearing into a new relationship while the place he built runs on fumes. And then we rewind 5 years, Christmas. This is the one, the Feast of the Seven Fishes at the Berzatto house, and it is the wound that the whole show is built on. Mikey's alive here, loud and magnetic, and clearly carrying something heavy under all the charm. Young Carm, younger Sugar, the whole extended family, a swarm of facts in matching outfits. Uncle Lee running his mouth, and at the center of it, the kid's mom, Donna, Dee Dee. She's been cooking since 4 a.m. She's drinking, and she's slowly coming apart. And her 3 kids have an entire silent language built around tracking how close she is to the edge. Don't ask if she's okay. Asking makes it worse. They've done this every single year. There's chaos that's genuinely funny. The baseball card scam Mikey and Fack run on poor cousin Steven. The dice game nobody can explain. The never-ending Fack head count. But under all of it, this awful tightening dread. Everyone bracing for the thing they know is coming. Donna pulls Mikey aside in the kitchen and tells him the truth that breaks your heart clean in half. She makes everything beautiful for everyone, and nobody makes anything beautiful for her. Nobody, she's sure, gives a single damn about her, and there's no fixing that in a hallway. At dinner, it detonates. Uncle Lee needles Mike, who's already running hot and clearly not okay, and Mikey starts up this excruciating standoff, gripping a fork, daring Lee. The two of them tearing strips off each other in front of everybody, screaming that the other one is nothing. It's brutal. Steven diffuses it for one shaky second with the kindest, most fumbling grace you've ever heard, about how the Seven Fishes is just an excuse to take time and listen and love the people at your table, and how this family, for all its wreckage, made space for him. For a heartbeat, it almost holds. It doesn't hold, though. Sugar asks her mom if she's okay one too many times, and Donna goes off, all that pain turned outward at once. And then she leaves the table, gets in the car, and drives it straight through the front of the house. The kids are pounding on the door screaming for her. And that's the memory. That's the thing every one of these people is still carrying years later. The reason Carm can't enjoy a good thing without waiting for the other shoe, the reason Sugar's terrified of having a kid, the reason this family loves each other in a language made almost entirely of damage. That Christmas is the ghost in every room of the new restaurant, the thing Carm can barely say out loud, even to the people closest to him, and the back half of this season is about whether any of them can build something beautiful on top of a foundation that cracked that badly. Starting of all places with Cousin and a tray of forks. So Carm's revenge on Cousin for being a pain is to ship him off to stage at the best restaurant in the world. 3 Michelin stars, run by a chef I'll call Chef Terry, and the gig he gets is polishing forks for a week. A 45-year-old man in an apron buffing streaks off cutlery while a kid half his age tells him he's doing it wrong. It is exactly as humiliating as it sounds, and Cousin is determined to do his time without giving Carm the satisfaction of seeing him crack. And then, slowly, the place gets to him. He watches a front-of-house operation run like a Swiss watch, where they research every guest like the CIA, where a smudge on a plate that costs the kitchen 47 seconds becomes a whole moral lecture, where they'll send a car to pull someone off the wait list the second a table opens. Then a pair of school teachers come in. They saved up for months. It's their dream to eat at a 3-star, and the whole staff quietly decides these two are not spending a dime tonight. They blow their minds and comp the entire thing, and something in Cousin just clicks. A guy named Garrett tells him he got sober, found purpose in serving people, and points out that restaurants and hospitals use the same word for a reason: hospitality. The real conversation happens peeling mushrooms next to Chef Terry herself, who does the most menial prep in the building every single morning because she thinks time spent caring is time well spent. She tells him about her own spectacular public failure years ago, after she rebuilt from nothing after standing under an awning in the rain at her lowest and spotting a for lease sign. Never too late to start over. She tells him her late father kept little notebooks full of tiny beautiful details and signed off every entry the same way. Every second counts. Cousin walks out of that place a completely different man, suit and all. This is the moment loud tracksuit guy graduates into Mr. Fine Dining. And honestly, it's the best arc the show's got. It costs him though. Right in the middle of this glow-up, his ex-wife Tiff calls to tell him Frank proposed and she said yes. He's becoming a better man and losing the family he wanted at the exact same time. Told you this show doesn't let anyone just be happy. Back at the build, everything hinges on one do-or-die fire suppression test. Pass it, the gas turns on and they open it. Fail it, they're sunk. And they keep failing until they figure out why. Mikey, at his most desperate, had once quietly rigged the system to fail on purpose because he'd thought about torching the place for the insurance money. It's a gut-punch detail, the kind of thing that tells you exactly how underwater he was. Once they understand the sabotage, the duct tape MacGyver fixes it, the balloon holds, and they pass. Sugar, officially the boss now, gets to hear the words, "You have a restaurant." Hot damn. Mr. Fine Dining marks the occasion by sitting down and giving Sugar a real, genuine apology, witnessed by Gary for the record. He says he spent his whole life shoving himself into places he didn't fit, and he's sorry, and he thinks they could actually be good together. Him handling the stuff she hates, her handling the stuff he can't. He's wearing a suit now. He mentions this constantly. It rules. But the partnership that's actually cracking is Carm and Sid's. Carm's been folding his new girlfriend Claire into everything, even riffing menu ideas off her. And Sid finally says the quiet part out loud. Should she run her cost reports by his girlfriend too while she's at it? She tells him point blank he needs to decide what Claire even is to him, friend or girlfriend, because his focus is split and the restaurant can't run on half a Carm. Meanwhile, Uncle Jimmy the bank corners Sugar in his car with the worst math yet. Interest rates are climbing. Every closed day is bleeding them. And if they have to refinance, they're looking at numbers that'll bury the place. His ask is simple. Open in 10 days or you're done. The night before the soft open is the calm before the storm. And it's where Carm and Sid patch things up over, of all things, a wobbly table. He tells her she deserves his full focus and he's sorry, admits Claire scares him precisely because she's so good, and tells Sid the thing that matters most. He could not do this without her, and wouldn't want to. He still loves the simple part of it too. That morning, he made his sister an omelet with fancy cheese and crushed sour cream and onion chips on top, the ridged kind. And you can see the one piece of him that's still just a guy who likes taking care of people. He hands Sid the kitchen for the opening with Mikey's old line, "Let it rip." And then the soft opening. And here's the brutal genius of it. The restaurant is a triumph. Sid runs a beautiful kitchen, Mr. Fine Dining works the floor like a maestro, reading every table, comping, charming, quoting philosophy at the busboys. The pastry artists' cannolis land. They run out of forks, because of course they do. And Gary gets sent to buy every fork in the city. The food is incredible. Everybody says so. The dream is, against all odds, working. But Carm is drowning. Sugar's braced all night for whether their mom will show. That old dread hanging over everything. Carm keeps blowing off Claire's table. And then the thing that's been broken all season finally gets him. That walk-in fridge. The one with the busted handle. The one the repair guy kept calling about while Carm was too distracted by Claire to ever pick up. Traps him inside on opening night, locked in, freezing. The crew talks to him through the door, cracking Star Wars jokes about Han Solo frozen solid, while Carm quietly comes apart, listing every way he failed everyone. Full Chef Doom spiral, except this time there's no kitchen to take it out on, just him and a metal door. And Claire is standing right on the other side of it. She hears all of it. She hears him say that being in a relationship is exactly why he failed tonight. That he's the best at what he does because he never had this kind of bullshit slowing him down. That he doesn't need to give anyone joy and doesn't need to feel any himself. That no amount of good is worth how terrible this feels. That the whole thing is a waste of time. Every word. She just says she's sorry he feels that way and she's gone. He starts screaming her name from inside the freezer the second he realizes. But it's done. He sabotaged the best thing in his life from inside a refrigerator. And she heard the whole confession. The girlfriend Carm keeps sabotaging, finally and completely sabotaged. Then Cousin lays into him through the door, furious about Claire, demanding to know why Carm can't let one good thing happen for once. It turns into the ugliest fight of the season, the two of them screaming the worst and the truest things they've got. Carm says he should have cut Cousin out long ago. Cousin fires back that Carm wasn't even there to bury his own brother, and that he's got nothing and nobody. And buried in all that venom, Cousin keeps yelling, "I love you and you need me," because with these people, the love and the cruelty come out of the same mouth at the same volume. And the cut that lands hardest, Cousin calls him Donna, the martyr who makes everything beautiful for everyone and then drowns in the resentment of it, the exact thing Carm swore he'd never become. And underneath all of it, the show plays Claire's voicemail from earlier that night, the one where she tells Carm she's always had a massive crush on him, that she's so proud, that Mikey would be proud, that she loves him, played right over the wreckage of him throwing it all away. So that's the season. The restaurant is a genuine hit. The food's incredible. The team rose to it. Sid ran the pass. Mr. Fine Dining owned the room. The dream is real and alive and good. And Carm came out of that freezer having proven the one thing he was always most afraid of, that he'll burn down anything that makes him happy if it means he gets to stay great and stay alone. The food works. The man's in pieces. And instead of learning a single thing from being trapped in that freezer, Carm's about to come out of it and double down on the exact obsession that put him in there. Because Season 3 opens the morning after, with a glowing future in front of him, a list of impossible new rules in his head, and absolutely no intention of slowing down. So Carm walks out of that freezer and immediately builds himself a bigger one. The morning after the soft open, the guy who just had a full panic spiral locked in a broken walk-in decides the takeaway is, somehow, that he wasn't hard enough on himself. And the season doesn't even ease you in. It opens like a fever dream. No real scene, no dialogue to grab onto, just a long, wordless reel pouring Carm's entire career through his head at once. His old nightmare boss screaming that he's nothing, that maybe this is as good as he's ever gonna get, Luca, the New York kitchens, a scallop dish plated and replated 1,000 times, and underneath all of it, Mikey. The phone call that changed everything. Mikey laughing, telling him to let it rip. It's beautiful and it's brutal, and by the end of it, Carm has decided exactly the wrong thing. He's going to chase perfect. Forever. No breaks. Cut to the restaurant where Chef Doom hands the crew a list. Non-negotiables. Respect tradition, push boundaries, change the entire menu every single day. Yeah, every day. A brand new menu daily for a place that's already bleeding money and barely staffed. The crew reads it like he's lost his mind, because he has, and then he drops the other bomb. There's a partnership agreement waiting in everyone's inbox. Him, Sugar, and Sid on paper, real ownership. A vesting schedule and everything, drafted by a guy nicknamed The Computer, who is, disappointingly, a regular human named Nicholas Marshall. Here's the thing though, Sid doesn't sign it. She's flattered, she's freaked out, and she just kinda sits on it. Keep that pen in your pocket, Sid. We'll be coming back to it. Meanwhile, Cousin and Carm pick up their love-hate war right where the freezer door left it. Mr. Fine Dining rearranged the tables. Carm rearranged them back. They spend a solid 10 minutes telling each other exactly where to go, while Sid gets a migraine and basically begs them to act like adults. Normal Tuesday. But the real gut punch early on is Marcus. His mom passed while all this is happening, and the show lets him say goodbye properly. At her service, he talks about how she kept everything running on her own, how she loved flowers, how near the end she couldn't speak anymore, so they communicated by really, truly paying attention to each other. He says he doesn't know what it's like to be a parent, but he knows what it's like to be a kid who felt genuinely seen. No jokes. Then the grind. Weeks of it. Compressed. Doors open. Doors! And it's chaos every single night. The food is incredible, and the math is a horror movie. There's a butter bill for over 11 grand. 11 grand on butter! Sugar runs the numbers and figures each seat needs to pull about $113,000 a year just to keep the lights on, and they keep missing it by a hair. The dining room is packed every night and the money flies straight out the window, because Carm keeps changing the menu, keeps buying the fanciest everything, keeps refiring perfectly good plates because the cook is off. Cousin's drowning out front. They fight about a guy who just doesn't want mushrooms. It's the same fight as the tables, as the freezer, as everything. Two guys who love each other screaming because they don't know how to say it. Now we slow down for a second. There's this quiet thread of Carm replaying Claire in his head, lying in bed with her on some ordinary day. The two of them comparing favorite days of the week, like that's a thing happy people get to do. He had that. He torched it, and he knows it. Out in the world, Sid's building a life that isn't all Carm. She signs a lease on her own apartment, her dad helping her shop for a couch. And then she bumps into a chef named Adam Shapiro. He admits he snuck into the Bear, says the food was excellent, says there was a scallop dish that felt genuinely new. New, he says, like not Carmy. Sid clocks that, files it away. Back at the restaurant, Carm swaps a pepper in one of Sid's dishes without telling anyone. And it's not about the pepper. It's that he changed her thing and didn't say a word, again. And the menu nobody can keep straight is quietly killing the partnership he supposedly wants. And then the floor drops out. The Tribune's coming to take photos, which means they've already been reviewed. They just don't know what it says. So they spiral into the most stressful photo shoot ever. Cousin spends 15 minutes obsessing over the exact placement of a single glass. Sammy Fack buffs the floors, and the computer sits everybody down and performs a financial autopsy, calmly explaining that most restaurants are allergic to success, and this one's no exception. Uncle Jimmy the bank watches his money evaporate and tells Sid point blank to stop stalling and press the button on that agreement. She still doesn't. There's also a tender little side quest where Marcus and Sid clean out his mom's apartment and bond over both being in what she calls the Dead Mom Club. Marcus gets inspired to build a dish around a single white violet his mom would have loved. The pastry artist doing his thing. And then the show stops the whole thing cold to tell you who Tina actually is. We rewind years. Tina's a middle-aged woman who just got laid off after 15 years at the same job, and she cannot catch a break. She sits through a scammy pitch promising unlimited income. She gets rejected from a job she could do in her sleep because she doesn't have a college degree. She shows up to an open interview that got quietly canceled, and on her way out she finally tells them exactly where they can stick it. Rock bottom. And then she wanders, exhausted and broke, into a loud little Italian beef joint. Cousin, younger and somehow even more unhinged, slides her a free sandwich. They end up on a bench talking about dreams, about how the good moments of your life always seem to happen around food, about a kid she once was who looked at a building full of working people and just knew that kind of dream wasn't coming for her. And the owner, this charismatic, big-hearted guy, offers her a job on the spot. No resume needed. He just talked to her and knew. Yeah, Mikey gave Tina her whole life, and from this moment on, she's earned it. Chef Tina. After that, the present-day money clock starts screaming. The beef window's running again, Cousin and Chef Tina holding it down, and they keep running out of seafolds, the paper towels that never showed up. Adam circles back and makes Sid a real offer this time. Come be his second-in-command at his new place. Partnership stake, 80 grand to start, full benefits. He says he just wants to talk to Carm first so it's clean. Sid doesn't say no. And Carm and Marcus have this conversation about legacy. Staring at an old magazine photo of the greats, the idea that great restaurants are basically a family tree, pieces of one kitchen ending up in another, dreams passed hand to hand. It's the warmest the show gets all season. Hold on to it. Because now it's go time for Sugar. She goes into labor, alone. She calls Pete, calls Sid, calls Carm, calls everybody. And Carm, naturally, doesn't answer his freaking phone. The only person who picks up is Dee Dee, her mother. The exact person all this trauma traces back to. And the show does something I did not expect. It just lets them sit in that hospital room and finally talk. Dee Dee, sober now, coaches her daughter's breathing and tells stories about giving birth to Mikey and to Carm. Sugar admits she spent her whole childhood making herself sick, trying to keep her mom happy, and that she's terrified of passing any of it down to the baby. Dee Dee says she can't forgive herself, and Sugar tells her she's not asking her to. 2 women, 1 wound, 1 room. They eat ice chips. They reconcile, as much as people like this ever can. Pete finally bursts in, baby on the way, and for one quiet stretch, this broken family gets something that just feels like grace. Handle that one with both hands. That's the whole show right there. The back half is one long parade of people trying and failing to say sorry. Carm can't apologize to Claire, can't really apologize to Sid. Sid keeps trying to tell him about the offer, and the words won't come. And the kitchen's so loud she gives up. The two of them almost connect. He tells her he doesn't want it to be so hard for her to keep up with him. And then they both retreat. Classic. Uncle Jimmy the bank delivers an ultimatum dressed up as a college lecture. If the review's bad, he cuts the strings. The money's gone. He and Carm do reach a strange peace, calling it even on everything except the 850 grand Carm still owes him. And in the all-timer of bad ideas, Cousin and Fack drive to the hospital to plead Carm's case to Claire on his behalf, telling her she's the piece, that Carm loves her, that he's just stuck. She's at work. She is mortified. It is somehow both the dumbest and sweetest thing 2 grown men have ever done. Which brings us to the finale, and it doesn't blow anything up. It goes quiet and goes deep. We open on a flashback to Carm's first day at the most famous restaurant in America, an absolute legend teaching him to truss a chicken and telling him the whole point of cooking is to take care of people, to come in every day and be a little better than yesterday. That's the dream. Then the show throws a closing party for Chef Terry's fine dining temple, packed with real chefs, and lets everybody trade stories about the first dish they ever made, intercut with Carm's old nightmare boss, still living in his head, calling him a failure, telling him his brother hated him. And then Carm actually confronts the guy. The monster looks at everything Carm built and basically says, "You're welcome. I made you great. The abuse worked, didn't it? You're here." It's the most chilling thing in the whole season because part of Carm clearly believes him. Outside, Chef Terry, who's walking away from all of it to actually live her life, leaves him with the only real wisdom anyone offers all year. You have no idea what you're doing, and that's exactly what makes you unstoppable. She tells him next time call her Andrea. Meanwhile, Adam keeps gently pressing Sid, and the offer she can't say yes to and can't say no to finally crushes her. She slips outside alone, and the panic takes over. And right as Carm is standing in the wreckage of everything he's chased, the long-awaited review of The Bear finally lands on his phone. It's a mess of contradictions, good and bad tangled together, no clean win. And the phone keeps buzzing, Uncle Jimmy the bank and the computer blowing it up, because the money just ran out, and the next thing they do to this restaurant won't be a lecture, it'll be a clock on the wall counting down to the end. So the clock goes up on the wall. Literally, the computer plugs in a countdown that reads 1,440 hours, and Uncle Jimmy the bank explains the math nobody wants. That's 2 months of money left. And when it hits zero, the restaurant closes. The lecture's over. Now it's a doomsday device in the dining room, ticking. And right as the noose tightens, the show rewinds to the warmest scene in the whole series. Carm and Mikey, years back. Carm pitching his brother on the dream. Mikey asks why a restaurant, and Carm fires back, why not a restaurant? Because every good memory they ever had happened around food. Because restaurants are where people go to be taken care of, to celebrate, to feel less alone. Even their miserable dad. They could make people happy. The two of them. Mikey asks what they'd call it. Carm says he's got an idea, and you already know how this dream ends, which is what makes it gut you. Back in the present, Carm's at home rewatching Groundhog Day, which is the least subtle the show has ever been, and somehow it still lands. He's stuck, same burnout, same day, on a loop. The review came out mixed. Some nice words buried under stuff like confusing, show-offy, dissonance. And Sid, gently, tells him the thing he can't hear. Maybe he doesn't actually need the chaos to be great. Maybe he'd be better without it. It knocks the wind out of him. Cousin steps up, though. Mr. Fine Dining stands in front of everybody and actually owns it. The critic came in 3 separate times, and Richie says that's on him, not because the guy was a critic, but because he was a repeat guest, and you take care of repeat guests. No excuses. He's been doing the work on himself, and it shows. So they build a system. Hand signals so the floor can talk without talking. Overbooking by 2 because there's always a couple no-shows. A delivery robot named Chucky. Little timing clocks for every course. Green means on pace, red means you're behind. Jess running Expo like an air traffic controller. Every second counts becomes the gospel. They're a machine now. A machine racing a clock. Meanwhile, the beef window is quietly the only thing printing money. Ebrahim's taken it personally. Building his own system, chasing what Carm keeps preaching about, creating opportunity. And the place sells out by 1:15. Carm even apologizes to him for the years he wasn't paying attention. The window's a hit. The fancy restaurant is the problem. And the problem gets worse, because their farmers start cutting their orders in half over the payment terms, which the show explains through an extended bit about apples that nobody at the restaurant can follow. Bottom line, the purveyors are punishing them. So they simplify, cut every dish from 5 components down to 3. Less fancy, but it might keep the doors open. There's a quiet phone call in here that matters. Carm finally tells Sugar he's ashamed he hasn't met baby Sophie yet. And Sugar, who's softer with him than anyone, says something that clearly rattles him. She tells him it would be completely okay if he didn't love cooking anymore. That the rare, beautiful part was always just that he was capable of loving something that much. Hold that thought. Now here's where it turns. There's a VIP family coming in. Parents who are social workers. A daughter who just hit 6 months cancer-free, and she's always wanted to see snow in Chicago. The surprise budget is gone, so the crew rigs fake snow with a power washer, a bag of sand, and a 45-degree nozzle. And they send the family out back into a homemade snowfall with hot cocoa. It's the kind of dumb, generous, beautiful thing this restaurant does when it's at its best. And somewhere in all of this, the critic is back, slipping in under fake last names borrowed from Chicago street signs. Carm clocks it later, but for one night he just watches Sid's seared scallop go out and land. Watches a guest melt over it, and you can see it on his face. He remembers why he does this. The actual brains of the operation made the dish that reminded him, which gives him the nerve to do the hardest thing. He goes to find Claire, the woman he torched from inside a broken freezer, and he actually apologizes. No hiding. He tells her he said that cruel stuff because it was easy to say, and that the truth is being around her made him feel like he was on fire, in the good way. And it terrified him so badly he tried to shut his whole head up and couldn't. She hears him, she forgives him, and then she steps back anyway. Tells him she hopes he finds some quiet, whatever that looks like for him, and says goodnight, Bear. It's not a reunion, it's a clean wound instead of a ragged one. And the very next thing Carm does is call Pete and tell him to change something in the partnership agreement. File that away. Then the show hands Sid a whole day off to figure out her life. She goes to her cousin Chantel's to get her hair done and ends up babysitting Chantel's kids. This sharp, lonely 11-year-old stuck choosing between 2 sleepovers. And as Sid helps her cook, she talks the kid through it. Except she's obviously talking about herself. There's the stinky special house, the one that's clean now but still has a faint funk, full of crazy people who sometimes treat you bad precisely because they care, where there's a bed that's hers but isn't her house, run by a big brother who's one of the best in the world but doesn't like to share. And there's the shiny pizza house, brand new, unlimited everything, a dad who talks too much but actually wants her to be happy. The pizza house isn't even finished being built. The special house, she's not sure they'll let her fix. The kid says take the pizza house. Sid doesn't decide, but you can hear which one she loves. Because the pizza house is Adam Shapiro, and his pitch is genuinely good. Real space, real money, full health care for the staff, training programs, the works. He says he doesn't want to be the only one steering the ship, doesn't want to hire one woman and surround her with guys who look like him. It's everything the bear can't promise. And Sid still can't say yes. Back at the restaurant, Carm does the thing nobody thought he could. He locks the menu, a set menu, the greatest hits from the last few months, frozen in place. No more changing it every single day to torture himself. He admits to Sid it was selfish, that swapping her dishes around to challenge himself never made anything better, and he's sorry. Chef Doom, choosing consistency over obsession, growth. The Copenhagen guy Luca turns up as a stage to give the kitchen some firepower, and he's clearly going to matter to Sid, which the facts immediately won't shut up about, and there's a redrafted partnership agreement floating around now, the one Carm had Pete change, with new terms Sid notices but doesn't get the full story on yet. Sugar finally brings baby Sophie into the restaurant, and the whole crew loses their minds over her. Except Carm, who keeps his distance. And then, right as things feel like they might actually be okay, Sid gets a call. Her dad had a heart attack. So the back half goes quiet and tender. Her dad pulls through. It was the milder kind, but it cracks something open in her. While she waits, she and Marcus, 2 members of that Dead Moms Club, sit together and he tells her the thing that's true about all of it. Parents are human. And the second something happens to them, a clock starts. There's always a clock. And the one thing he's learned working here is that worrying about people and letting them worry about you is basically everything we've got. Sid, who spent the whole season trying to decide whether to leave, sits with her dad and realizes how much she'd give to just let him worry about something stupid for once. Meanwhile, the restaurant's bracing for a wedding. Richie's ex is marrying Frank, the annoyingly great stepdad, on Sunday, and nobody wants to go. Cousin can't stand watching another man parent his kid, and Carm flat out refuses, not because of Claire, who he swears he's fine with now, but because his mother's going to be there, Dee Dee, the one room he spent years avoiding. He and his mom haven't spoken in a long, long time, and Sugar quietly reminds everyone that it's been years. Sugar tells her brother to stop hiding, says the wedding isn't about him, it's about Tiff, and it'll mean the world to her if he shows. Carm looks at his sister and says it. I'll go. And then, a beat later, someone just hands him the baby so they can run to the bathroom. And this guy, this walking panic attack who flinches at his own family, holds his niece, and the noise in his head goes quiet. He looks at Sophie, anxiety gone, just for a second. The future of the whole place, 8 pounds of it, right there in his arms. So the whole busted, beautiful, exhausted family is about to pile into one room. His mom he hasn't faced in years, the woman he just let go, the stepdad nobody can hate, the critic who's already been in twice, and a countdown clock still ticking on the wall back home, while Carm finally walks straight into the exact thing he's been running from his entire life. So Carm walks into the wedding, into the one room stuffed with every person he's been avoiding, and the show does the most bare thing possible. It doesn't give you a big confrontation, it gives you a tablecloth. But first, the chaos. Half of Chicago is here. Cousins nobody can place, the entire Fack bloodline, Frank the stepdad being aggressively wonderful, Claire across the room, and Dee Dee, who actually showed. Sid's Richie's +1, and the two of them prop each other up at the bar like the survivors they are. Cousin a sweating mess of nerves, Sid still quietly sitting on a decision she won't name. Carm and his mom finally land in the same few feet of space, and it's stiff and small. He mentions a box of old photos he found, says he was hoping to see her. She says she was hoping to see him too. And then the kitchen pulls him away before any of it can become anything. What he does get is Uncle Lee, Donna's old partner figure, the guy who once detonated Christmas. Except Lee's different now. He tells Carm he and Mikey actually became close in the years Carm was gone, and he went to Mikey's funeral and quietly left without telling anyone, because grieving wasn't his to perform. And he tells Carm the thing the kid needs to hear. Mikey talked about him constantly. The fish wrapped in potato, the dish with ants, the best restaurant in the world, and that he was proud of him. Lee says Dee Dee's doing the work now, learning to let the pain out before it calcifies, and that sometimes the only way to break a pattern is to just break it. Carm thanks him for not telling him to go see his mom, which is, of course, exactly how you tell someone to go see their mom. Meanwhile, Sid and Dee Dee have a quiet, lovely talk. Dee Dee says your work family can end up closer than your blood, and Sid admits that years ago, before any of this, she flew to New York just to eat Carm's food. Best meal of her life. Had to split the check across 3 credit cards. She didn't know him yet. She just knew the food was special. She still thinks he's one of the best in the world. And then the heart of the whole series happens under a table. Eva, Richie's daughter, hides under there because she's terrified of the father-daughter dance. And one by one, the entire broken family crawls under after her to keep her company. And they go around saying what they're scared of. Bees, AI, heights, big dogs, and closed spaces for the guy who got locked in the freezer. Failing for Sid. Betrayal for the women who keep betraying each other. And when it gets to Carm, he can't find the words for the opposite of chaos. Somebody offers peace. That's the one. The most anxious man alive, sitting under a tablecloth surrounded by every person he spent 4 seasons running from, admitting out loud that what scares him is calm. They take a photo. Bears on 3. He even dances with Eva. He participates. Claire's there too. Residency finally finished, and the two of them reconnect soft and real. Both just getting there. No big reunion, just a door left unlocked. By the end of the night, Sid lets slip that the thing she was nervous about was a choice. And when she really looked, there was only ever one. Because back at the restaurant, she makes it official. She calls Adam Shapiro and turns the whole thing down. The money, the healthcare, the shiny unfinished pizza house, all of it. She's staying. Adam calls it an idiotic decision and tells her she's clinging to a sinking ship. Maybe, but it's her ship now, even if she doesn't know it yet. And the clock keeps ticking down to its last day. The computer runs the final numbers, and they're not nothing. Consistent growth. They survived the review. They could technically scrape by at this stripped-down level, but he asks the only question that matters. And it's not whether they can keep going. It's why. Carm finally answers it the only way he can. He drives the box of old photos over to his mother's house, and Dee Dee, almost a year sober, sits him down and reads him a letter she wrote. She lists everything she was, lost, alone, angry, awful to her kids, and then she tells him she wrote "I'm sorry" about 25 times, because she means it 25 times over. She says she failed, that she hears about his whole life secondhand because she doesn't actually know him, and that's on her. And she's not asking to fix anything. She just wants back in. She tells him he's her baby. Carm, who has spent 4 years armored against this exact woman, tells her he's sorry he wasn't there, that he loves her too, and then she gets up and makes him lunch. The tonnato she once ate in Italy on the worst, loneliest day, made kindly by a stranger. No jokes anywhere near it. While that's happening, Uncle Jimmy the bank tells Sid that her mother would be proud of how she turned out, and Sid quietly says her mom was an actress who passed when she was 5. And Carm leaves Jimmy a voicemail he's clearly been needing to leave for years, thanking him, owning that he ran the place into the ground, telling him he's sorry and that he knows how to fix it. Then the phone rings with the call they've been chasing all season, and it isn't a review, it's Food and Wine, naming Marcus one of the best new chefs in the country. Donut Marcus, the pastry artist who taught himself to grieve through cake. The whole crew loses it. Speech! He just says he loves the place and he loves all of them. And there's 45 minutes to service, so get back to work. And then the gut punch. Pete, who is somehow the family lawyer, quietly tells Sid what's actually in the redrafted agreement Carm had him changed. Carm isn't on it. The restaurant splits 2 ways. Uncle Jimmy on one side and on the other side just Sid and Nat. Carm wrote himself out of his own dream, which detonates the finale. Sid corners him out back and unloads because she had to hear it from Pete, and Carm finally says the quiet thing out loud. He's leaving. Not just the restaurant, the whole thing. He's going to get them out of debt and then walk away, hand it to Sid and Nat, because he doesn't love this anymore. Maybe never did the way everyone assumed. He admits he became a cook to avoid becoming a person, that he built hurdles, the daily menu changes, the silence, the refusing to apologize, the being a menace, all of it walls between him and the stuff he couldn't face. And Sid, furious and heartbroken, tells him he doesn't get to do this. that he self-sabotages and bolts the second things get good, and it isn't fair. He tells her the truth right back. She is everything he's never going to be, that the restaurant only started breathing the day she walked in, that 7 people in that building would step in front of a train for her, and the only version of this place that survives is the one with her running it, because she's the real bear now. She tells him he changes his mind every 10 seconds, so why should she believe this one? He says because he means it. Then Cousin comes out, hears quitting restaurants entirely, and goes off, until Carm drops the thing he's been carrying for 4 seasons. He went to Mikey's funeral. He slipped in, couldn't breathe, stepped right back out, and sat alone in his car. Richie, who almost broke him over a freezer door once, snaps, demands to know what he was wearing if he really was there, and Carm can't answer because he was inside for 10 seconds. And then it cracks open into the realest conversation these two have ever had. They both resented each other. They both lost Mikey. Richie always felt like just the cousin, the outsider who got to know the family, and Carm tells him he was never just that. Richie confesses he stayed at the beef all those years to keep an eye on Mikey, and that he feels like he failed him. Carm tells him he didn't. Carm admits he was jealous, that he bought the French laundry cookbook just to understand what the big deal was, that he envied a single perfect half hour Richie once spent driving around with Mikey. 2 grieving men finally putting it down. Carm says he doesn't even know who he is outside a kitchen. That's why he has to go find out. And here's where it actually turns, where 4 seasons of wreckage becomes something like a family business instead of a family wound. Sid refuses the deal as written. If she's signing, the other side isn't just her and Nat, it's her, Nat, and Richie. Carm doesn't even hesitate. You've got it. Cousin, the lost tracksuit guy who became Mr. Fine Dining, accepts in his own way, says this is his home and he's not going anywhere. Sid accepts too, calls it an honor, and then asks the only question left standing. How in the world do they actually keep the place open? Carm doesn't have the answer. Nobody does. We're gonna figure it out, he says. And then Sugar walks out into the middle of all of it and learns her brother's leaving, learns he went to Mike's funeral after all, and the show ends right there, on her face, on a question. Carm? The torch, half past, the debt still real, the family still healing in pieces, and the future of the bear no longer resting on the most broken person in the building. So that's the whole thing so far. A genius chef came home to bury his brother and accidentally inherited a sandwich shop and a mountain of grief. And over 4 seasons, he tore it down and built something beautiful and nearly destroyed himself doing it. And the ending isn't him fixed. It's him finally honest enough to admit he might not be the hero of his own restaurant, that the kindest thing he can do for the people he loves is handing them the keys and go figure out how to be a person. When we left off, Carmy had made the bravest, dumbest call of his life. He decided he didn't want to be head chef of the Bear anymore. Not the restaurant, not the people, just the job. The one thing he wrapped his entire personality around since he was a kid. Sydney knew they'd landed on it together, and they were waiting for the right moment to tell the rest of the crew. Season 5 picks up the very next morning, and the morning does not go well. We open somewhere quiet, which for this show is already a warning sign. Tina's home before her shift, frying herbs the way she saw Sydney do it once, telling her husband she never wants to feel the way she used to, never wants their son to see her like that again. And he reminds her how far she's come. New skills, money saved, a whole life doing something she loves with people she loves. He calls it winning the lottery. It's the calm before a biblical storm. Because outside, the sky opens. A month of rain in one day. Flash flood warning across the whole city. And on this, of all mornings, the reservation app goes down. The entire booking system just quietly dies, and Carmy is already having the worst commute of his life. He rear-ended somebody. He tells Sugar it was nothing. He grabbed a rideshare. He's fine. But then he tells her why. He was thinking about his brother. He was thinking about Mikey. And he stopped paying attention. And he hit the car in front of him. And here's the gut punch the show doesn't underline. Richie did the exact same thing. Same morning, driving along, thinking about the one time he slapped Mikey, feeling all of it come back up. And he crashes too. 2 grown men, still carrying a ghost, both denting their cars on the same rainy morning. Nobody says it out loud. They don't have to. So that's the mood. Now here's the money. Turns out the Bear's on life support for a reason. Uncle Jimmy made a huge trade. It blew up, and he lost roughly 3/4 of his money. He's quietly selling everything, including the building. Deliveries get cut, paper goods first, the credit cards stop working, and Carmy, being Carmy, doesn't respond to a crisis by relaxing. He responds by inventing a word, maximization, and losing his mind over a single paperclip he found in the parking lot, because in his brain, one paperclip walking out of the door is the difference between profit and ruin. Sugar just looks at him like, buddy, are you okay? He is not. He is not okay. And then the plumbing. which has been growling like a haunted animal all morning, finally lets go. One of the Fact brothers, Ted, gets blasted. The pipes rupture and the whole place floods. So catch up with me. The building's flooding, there's no money, half the staff thinks it's their last day, the reservation system is possessed, and Carmy quit. And they've decided out loud that they're absolutely not closing because one dark day means they can't cover payroll, which is insane, which is the bear. The next stretch is the crew bailing out a sinking ship while planning a dinner party on top of it. And it's the show at its funniest and most exhausting. They mop, they fan, they rig a backup dish pit in the locker room. Sugar spends her morning begging a plumber to just say a number, any number. They run out of caviar, so Marcus fast-tracks a new signature, this candle-looking dessert he's been developing. And Sydney books a very important 7:30. She wants her dad to see the place tonight, before, hopefully, they get their first star. She wants him to see what she built. Meanwhile, Jimmy brings in his fixer, a young surveyor everybody just calls Cheese, real name Terry, though she'll cut you if you use it. And yes, she's the computer's niece. She does a walkthrough and delivers the most devastating pep talk in restaurant history. Possible sinkhole, roof caving, soil contaminated, deed booby-trapped, plus some legendary incident involving Donna and the Lincoln Park Zoo that apparently still counts against them. Her verdict, which becomes her catchphrase, restaurants are a horrible business. Nobody's buying this one. She does float one lifeline. Sell the air rights, the right to build up above the restaurant. Let somebody stack a condo on top and keep the doors open. Only problem, and this is very bare, nobody's sure they even own the air rights anymore. Two moments in here matter more than the rest. First, Tina and Sugar. Sugar is drowning and not from the flood. Her baby's home with grandma, and she's exhausted, guilty, stalking her own kid through a baby monitor, wondering if this whole restaurant is a sign she should walk away. And Tina tells her the truth. It's always going to hurt. But your baby doesn't care that you're ambitious. Your baby just wants to look at your face. And if your face is always sad because you're home instead of doing the thing you love, that's the face they'll remember. Total love. Zero sugarcoating. The most Tina thing possible. Second, Carmy and the baby monitor. He's compulsively listening to it, and he admits something dark to Sugar. He's not listening to make sure Sophie's okay. He's listening because part of him wants Donna to mess up. He's waiting for the disaster he grew up expecting. And then the monitor crackles and we hear it. Donna, gentle as anything, reading Sophie a bedtime book about a little hare measuring how much he's loved. No chaos, no fear, just a grandmother being soft. It heals something without saying a word about it. Now, about the reservations. Remember the app dying and coming back? Combine that glitch with the press Marcus's dessert got, and the system quietly accepted way too many tables. When Richie does the math, the room goes cold. They're at 3 turns, roughly double what they can handle. On a day with a flooded kitchen, no money, barely any food, and servers walking out. Carmy tries to call it a champagne problem. Somebody correctly calls it a champagne nightmare. And it's in the middle of that meltdown that Carmy's secret detonates. He's rallying everyone, tells them to keep grooving, and somebody mutters, "Oh, so you quit, but we keep grooving." Cool, and it's out, in front of the whole staff, in the worst way possible. So Carmy just has to say it. He doesn't think he should be head chef anymore. He loves them, all of them. But this isn't what makes him happy, and honestly, he's not sure it ever did. And he doesn't think he can be great at something he doesn't love. And then the part that lands. He looks around at how much they love this and says he wants that. He wants to wake up and feel about something the way they feel about this place. That's the whole ballgame for Carmy this season. He's not running away. He's admitting he's been surviving instead of living. And he's done. Jimmy, being Jimmy, calls the time inconvenient and tells his nephew to do something anatomically impossible. It's not their finest family moment. And on cue, a fac falls through the ceiling. Because of course he does. The prep hours before serving are where the season does its best quiet character work. Richie therapizes Carmy while they're both ankle-deep in floodwater. He tells him the reason he loves those brutal kitchens, where he never had to think, is that there was so much he didn't want to think about. Not thinking about yourself all the time, healthy. Not thinking about anything, just depressing. And you're a lousy teammate always alone. Do the thing where you have to think about other people. Then Richie admits the slap, and the guilt, and the impossible knot of grief, that he wishes it hadn't been him who hit Mikey that day, and he's also somehow glad it was. Marcus, who's been watching old movies to steal dessert ideas, shares a line from some subtle film about a mother who lost her son. Something about how we let fear put limits on our grief when really none of that is real. And he gently asks Sydney if that's why she invited her dad the day after the best new chef. And she admits it. She was scared she'd never get another chance to show him. The air rights hunt leads to an unhinged field trip to the house of a woman known only as Crazy Mary, complete with an ongoing thread about someone named Raymond who turns out to be her dog. And here's the sad core of it. Back in 2018, Mikey sold Mary those air rights for $2,500. Mikey. So to save the place now, they have to buy back a piece of it from the last deal Mikey ever cut. When they pitch her, they don't talk numbers. They talk about the restaurant like family. Mary's not sold, and Jimmy's broke anyway. But the point isn't the real estate. It's that everybody in that room knows exactly what this place is. And then Sydney takes Tina aside and tells her that whatever happens tonight, Tina is her CDC, chef de cuisine. Tina, who a few seasons ago couldn't find a job at all, doubts she can do it. And Sydney tells her the obvious truth. You've been doing it. Okay, the rain's still coming down. It's time for service. And before they open the doors, Richie gives a pre-meal speech that is, no exaggeration, one of the best things the show has ever done. He starts to read a fancy quote off his notebook, and then throws it out because it's fake and he knows it. He tells them the truth instead. He's only ever been to one perfect restaurant in his life. No stars, no magazine write-ups, no fancy chef nonsense, just a place where everybody laughed and talked over each other so loud you couldn't hear a thing. That served meatballs and 2-day-old leftovers and whatever was in the fridge, where nobody ever kicked you out and you never had to worry about Monday. That restaurant was the Berzatto house. Sunday night, Mikey's house. And it made him feel less alone. Then he brings it home. They've got no money, barely any food, they're outgunned and outmanned, and Monday might not even come. So they've got nothing left to lose, which means nothing to be scared of, which is, in his words, perfect. And then Sydney runs the pass, lays out the battle plan, and gives Carmy his marching orders. Tonight, he's her tenant, her utility guy, the floater who plugs holes wherever she needs it. Carmy Berzatto, working the line under Sydney. The whole show's been building to that role reversal, and it's perfect too. The last name on the flagged reservation, Dearborn. And they're all convinced it's the Michelin inspector, the Starman. Service is a beautiful disaster. The rain scares half the tables into showing up late or not at all, so they're either dead or drowning. Richie keeps sending out surprise comped bits that bypass the kitchen, and he and Sydney have it out mid-service before landing on the thing that saves them all season. It's not fighting, Sydney says, it's communication. The emotional peak of the night is Marcus and Sydney. She cracks under the pressure and screams, loud enough to be heard 3 states over, and Marcus talks her back down. She confesses the fear underneath the dad thing. If this place goes away, she's got nothing, and she doesn't know how she'll get through tomorrow alone. And Marcus, fellow member of the club for people whose moms are gone, tells her flat out, she didn't earn that award because of the building. She earned it because she's talented. The building was never the foundation. They are, and her mom would be unbelievably proud. He says he'll see her tomorrow, and means it. Luca and Carmy get into it too. More than a spat. Luca, headed back to Copenhagen, accuses Carmy of half-stepping because he's checked out. They shove each other, and Luca throws the knife that cuts. He says he ran away, all the way to Denmark, specifically so he wouldn't turn into Carmy. They patch it up later, but it leaves a mark. Then the rain stops, and Richie has his moment of genius. Instead of forcing waiting guests to stew, he throws them a party. Dries the patio, ices down all that random beer nobody could explain earlier, drags out a dessert course, and turns the overflow crowd into a celebration so he can flip tables without anyone feeling rushed. The crew frantically empties their cars for supplies, with a firm no to certain party favors on account of whatever happened last time, which we thankfully never learn. It works. Of course it works. Oh, and Richie never actually canceled the 15 tables Sydney ordered him to cut. Not one, because he genuinely believes there's magic in this building. That everyone who ever loved and cried in that room is still rooting for them and won't let the place fail. Sydney finds it deeply annoying. She's also not sure he's wrong. Now the finale, and this is where I want to take my time, because the show earned it. The presumed inspector, Mr. Dearborn, finally arrives and he brings a guest, a Chicago legend, the actual WGN weatherman Tom Skilling. Richie is starstruck. Carmy has no idea who this man is. Marcus's dad shows up as a quiet one-top, and they have a careful, hopeful little reunion. His dad telling him he's proud. Marcus saying there's so much he needs to say. His dad telling him they've got time. Sydney's dad comes for his 7:30, and Donna finally arrives. And Sugar sets her up in the office with the baby. And Donna looks around and tells her daughter, this is the bear, and you did this. Now go be a working mother. After 5 seasons of Donna, that lands like a freight train. Neil Fack gets a gorgeous little aside where he explains his tattoo to a guest, and his initials in it turn out to be his real friends and family, Mikey and Carmy, and Nat and Richie among them. Because to Neil, The Berzattos, dead brother included, are family. And then during the main course, on the Starman's table specifically, the stove dies. Not a breaker, the suppression system. Something boiled over onto a burner and the safety feature shut the whole line down for half an hour. They scramble, rig extension cords, declare a hotline, and Sydney gives the order that's been echoing all season. From here on, they turn right and only right. And in the chaos, the lights flicker, and Carmy drops the plate, the Starman's dish, on the floor. And Carmy, who's spent 5 seasons learning to fall apart quietly, starts to spiral, saying he ruined everything, and the crew catches him. They circle up and tell their cousin, "We've got you." And they mean it. Sydney doesn't panic. She asks Carmy if he trusts her. He says yes, and she makes the call that ties the whole series together. Forget the fancy lamb. Fire the Coca-Cola short ribs, the humble braised-in soda dish that started as a family meal, built off something Sydney's own mother used to make her. Carmy argues, then folds, because he knows she's right, and he says the truest thing he's said all season. It's better than anything he's ever made. So they send it, plus a plate of fried Brussels sprouts they simply name family meal, to the presumed inspector. They serve comfort food, and it's the best thing in the room. And a quiet beat. Somebody asks Carmy how he did this job for 10 years, and he tells them to listen to the pan. You hear the music? After a lifetime of hearing only noise, he's finally passing on the one thing that was ever good about it. The service ends, they pull it off, and the next morning the other shoe drops. And it's not the shoe anyone expected. First, the gut check. Even after the impossible night, the profit is 0. They made payroll, and that's it. Because they had to buy pipes and fix a wall and their margins are brutal. Success doesn't pay the bills. That's the real monster the Bear's been fighting all along. So the survival plan clicks into place. Ebra, who's spent the whole season too scared of Carmy's blue eyes to finish a sentence, pitches the franchise for real. Not the fancy restaurant, the beef. Ghost kitchens across Illinois. The original sandwich. None of the dining room heartbreak, backed by a money guy named Albert. And Carmy, instead of controlling it, blesses it. He tells Ebra they're the reason the place is what it is. Go get 'em. Then Jimmy and Carmy make up on a bench. The reconciliation the show's been promising. Jimmy admits half his brain is furious that his nephew ran his investment into the ground. And that anger's fair, but that's not the part that told Carmy off. That was the part that just loves the kids so much it hurts. And he says the thing this family has never been able to say out loud. There's a serious quitting problem in this family. Not the restaurant family, the actual family. Jimmy's quit every job he ever had, so no more quitting. And in the same breath, this beautiful old lug asks if he needs permission to take Donna to dinner. And then the phone rings, and the Starman mystery flips inside out. It's a man named Peter Clark. Carmy has no idea who that is, but Sydney does. Clark is the actual inspector, and he was never coming tonight. Dearborn was just some guy. Clark already came, months ago, the snow night, the one where Sydney made that scallop dish. And he called to say his piece. The food was exceptional and creative, the talent undeniable. There's a scallop dish he still can't stop thinking about. The room felt alive without ever being precious or trying too hard, and they got 2 stars. They spent an entire desperate season chasing a starman who was a ghost, while the real verdict was already in the past, earned on Sydney's scallops and a room full of people who cared. Carmy tells her the truth of it. She got 2. They decided to sit on the news until after service, so nobody loses focus, because that's who they are now. Then the goodbyes. Luca heads back to Copenhagen, and on his way out he tells Marcus the thing it took a career in the best kitchens on Earth to learn. The Bear has one thing none of those places have: family. Marcus is staying to run pastry solo, already heading into practice on his day off. Richie, terrified of flying and mid-panic attack about it, is off to a hospitality seminar in Japan, and Carmy talks him down by reframing it as a training exercise for an international businessman, which technically Richie now is. The crew sends him off with a care package of every travel remedy known to man. Tina fully steps into being CDC and threatens lovingly to become a total psycho chef now that it's official. And even a 2-star night doesn't change the grind. The next service is already on the board, and Sydney's the captain now. Carmy sits with the nightly numbers, the part of the day that always used to wreck him. And for once, he isn't worried, because the place finally has someone at the wheel. When he asks Sydney if she's got that feeling, the one where maybe you're exactly where you're supposed to be, she says she does. Which brings us to Carmy. On his birthday, his first day off in ages, he goes to a job interview for an internship at an architecture firm, set up by Stevie, who coaches him beforehand to lean all the way into the family darkness, because it's the opposite of selling a house. You want to lead with haunted. He sits down with a woman named Sue, and she asks him a simple question. What is he hoping to explore here? And Carmy, trying to explain why he's leaving cooking, instead tells her about the worst service of his life. Everything went wrong, and it wasn't the staff. It was the circumstances. He admits that if he'd been running that kitchen the old way, he'd have made it worse, because the job made him miserable, because a lot of the time, it's just a mess inside his own head. But this time, everybody cared so much and tried so hard and loved so much that it didn't feel like one guy trying to survive. It felt like a whole group of people lifting each other up, and getting to watch all of them score together was the greatest thing. Even though it was miserable, it was the most fun he'd ever had. And Sue very kindly points out that he never answered a question about the internship, because he doesn't want it. He just spent 10 minutes falling in love with the thing he came to leave. The guy went to interview his way out of the restaurant, and accidentally proved he can't quit it. Cut to the Bear where the crew's running one last con. Somebody's giving a little girl a very serious tour of the very fancy restaurant. No laughing allowed. Serious, like Uncle Carmy serious. She flips a light switch, the lights come up, and the whole room shouts happy birthday to Eva, Richie's daughter, turning 8, the one who picked the restaurant's flowers and wanted a cake with 100 candles. Surprise party at the Bear, everybody's there. And that's how the whole thing ends. Not with a trophy, not with a speech. 2 stars are real, but they haven't even celebrated them yet. Instead, it's a kid blowing out candles in a room packed with people who would run into a burning building for each other. It's a birthday cake getting cut by too many hands at once. Somebody grabbing another knife to help, somebody taking the long way around the room with a plate. It's the perfect restaurant Richie described. The one with the leftovers and the laughing and the people you didn't choose. No stars required. After everything, the flood, the money, the grief, the ghost of a brother, it ends with the family in one room feeding each other cake. Which, if you've been paying attention this whole time, it's pretty much the only thing any of them ever actually wanted. That's the Bear. Thanks for hanging out.